The Cotswolds, a unique area of southwest England full of gorgeous countryside with the most spectacular views.
Oh, look at this.
But I would say that I live here.
This is the life.
I'm poet Pam Ayres.
It's so nice to be back.
And in this new series, I'm discovering more delights in my lush part of the world.
Just look at this.
Oh, gosh. I think that's breathtakingly beautiful.
You're a genius.
I can't deny it.
But this time I'm heading further afield too, to discover amazing places.
Look, it's awesome, isn't it? Absolutely spectacular. Look at the colours.
And fascinating stories just beyond the Cotswolds borders.
This is what he actually looked like. Gosh.
The only reason it's here is because your ancestors looked after it for 3,000 years.
So join me as I make new friends
Well, welcome to Longleat House.
who are passionate about the places they call home.
Come in, darling.
It's
You know
very
you'll-
inviting.
Yeah, you'll like it.
I would tenter.
I don't know what that means.
You might just recognise a few of them.
This is the place I first heard the Beatles.
Cheers. Cheers, Malvern.
Today I visit Highclere Castle, a grand stately home that's become a TV star.
When people come in, they must imagine themselves in Downton Abbey, that Carson might come in carrying a tea
Cup
tray
of
or something.
coffee, yes,
A cup of
definitely.
coffee. Yeah.
I join former breakfast TV star Anne Diamond for an emotional trip back to her beautiful childhood hometown of Malvern.
I'd forgotten how proud I was of Malvern. I mean, this is such a wonderful reminder.
And I enjoy a seaside trip to Weston-super-Mare.
I've won a ball. Oh, wow. It's the first time I've ever won anything in my life.
Now, the Cotswolds is a place you've probably already heard of. But just in case you're scratching your head and wondering exactly where to find it, let me show you. First, head to southwest England, where nestling between Bath, Cheltenham and Oxford is an area of gorgeous rolling countryside which stretches across 6 counties. From Blenheim Palace to Sudeley Castle, the Cotswolds is home to some of the country's grandest stately homes. But just beyond the Cotswolds borders, there are some other remarkable ones too, and today I'm starting my journey at one of the finest of them all, near the village of Highclere in Hampshire. Nestled within 1,000 acres of spectacular parkland is a castle, which is the jewel in the crown of this magnificent country estate.
The last time I came to Highclere Castle was for a lovely occasion. It was for our friend Des O'Connor's wedding, and I was asked to recite a poem, and it was just a gorgeous evening. And I thought Highclere Castle was absolutely beautiful. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, millions across the UK and the rest of the world certainly do, because they know and love it as the home of TV's Downton Abbey. But it's also the ancestral seat of the Earls of Carnarvon, and today I'm pleased to be meeting Lady Carnarvon to find out the secrets of the real Downton Abbey.
It's a spectacular room at the heart of the castle. It's lovely because it's so light, which makes it so welcoming, so uplifting throughout the year.
And we're starting in a room where many memorable scenes have been played out by the very charming Lord Grantham.
Actually, it caused some problems when Downton Abbey were filming here, and they were always blacking out the light to control the light because it kept varying. So actually, during the filming, sometimes I got really depressed because it was so dark.
For more than 12 years, this room has invited in a staggering 120 million people through their TV screens, as it became the main focal point of the series.
I'm sure when people come in, they must imagine that Carson might come in carrying a tea
Cup
tray
of
or something.
coffee, yes,
Cup of
definitely.
coffee. Yeah. What's people's reaction when they come in?
I think they're very happy. It's a wonderful muddle between Downton Abbey and Highclere Castle. And it's I'm very happy that people enjoy both worlds, if you like.
Yeah.
And I think Downton Abbey's offered people a world apart in what's rather a frightening and challenging real world. And it's very nice to step into a different world for a time being.
Nice bit of escapism.
The TV series is only half the story. The real history of Highclere is something quite different.
Downton Abbey called it the Great Hall. We call it the saloon, not as in a Western saloon, but from the French Le Salon, though wouldn't mind a bar in here. But it is, I mean, goes back, there's been a home here since 749 AD. That's my earliest record. And I think there was a medieval dining hall here, which kept being incorporated within the transformations of the building, the recycling. They just recycled here.
Right.
And I think there was a medieval fireplace behind the Victorian one, and there's water wells under our feet. So people have dined and enjoyed themselves, I hope, in this room. Well, for at least 1,000 years. That's quite
Isn't
cool.
that extraordinary? 1,000 years. Crikey.
This 300-room Grade 1 listed home was originally built in the late 1600s, but the castle's current appearance was shaped by Sir Charles Barry, the man who famously designed the Houses of Parliament. Nowadays, it welcomes more than 100,000 tourists through its doors every year.
So when other people come in, they think, oh, this is a film set Downton Abbey and Carson and all the wonderful Lady Mary and all the wonderful cast. But it's your home, isn't it? Well, how does that feel? Do you mind that people come in their thousands and share your home?
No, I think these huge homes, there's 250 rooms, were meant to be shared and admired. They always have been. So we're just doing it in a slightly different way. You're looking through someone's keyhole, which is always appealing. And people enjoy the photographs, which are in sort of old broken frames, as much of the great portraits by Van Dyck. So I like the balance, and I think that, again, makes it seem a home. It's completely imperfect.
Highclere's grand designers haven't just shaped the inside of this home, they've transformed the outside too. And Lady Carnarvon's given me a special tour of the spectacular landscaped garden surrounding the castle.
The gardens are a little bit distant across the lawn from the castle, and the castle itself sits within a park of 1,000 acres, which was a medieval deer park. And then in 1771, Capability Brown drew up the plans for this beautiful rolling parkland, partly naturally created and partly by the hand of man.
Yes.
So I hope it's hard to see where one begins and another
It certainly
ends.
is. It's so beautiful.
From landscaping on a huge scale by Britain's most famous garden designer, to these stately cedars of Lebanon imported 250 years ago, this is a garden which has evolved over centuries.
We're heading down to the Monk's Garden because I thought it was a good place to start.
Yeah.
The walls themselves date back for 1,000 years, so...
Gosh.
It seems that the monk's preference was for a fragrant rose.
So it's scented roses, Fontaine Latour, which is what this one is. It smells
Can I have a sniff?
heavenly. It's falling apart, actually, but...
Oh, they're gorgeous. And that's the true rose smell, isn't it?
Such a beautiful, heady perfume. I wish you could smell them. They've got the perfect pong.
And I understand that somewhere there's a secret garden.
I can't tell you it's secret.
Oh,
But come this way. How about that?
thanks.
The garden was designed in the 1960s for the 6th Earl of Carnarvon, and Downton fans will recognise it from the Dowager Countess's tea parties.
It's
is
such
quite
a
fun.
beautiful garden. And that's, I want to say actinidia. Is
I
that
think
right?
it is,
Okay.
yes.
And I remember it by saying he was acting the idiot. So you can sort of then remember actinidia. I got these ruses for it. And also Ceanothus. I think I remember Ceanothus by saying, see a notice and read what's on it, you know, and that helps me to remember.
Well, that's my technique. It certainly works for me. And so do Highclere's gardens, which are just sumptuous.
This beautiful wildflower meadow.
It's amazing.
What does it feel like to walk around and think, this is my garden?
I look up here and And it is a complete joy just to see it developing every single day. It changes. And there's not that much time. I am often on my own. But having said that, first thing in the morning at 8 o'clock or the same time in the evening, it is magic to potter around. Gardens are dreams, aren't they? They're magic.
They are magic. They're good for us.
Coming up, I discover more secrets of Highclere with the inside story of one of the treasures of Tutankhamun.
They were beyond words.
Yes.
They never in their wildest dreams thought they'd find it. And, you know, it was the last gasp because he was about to give up.
And TV star Anne Diamond reveals how her parents' wartime romance brought her to Malvern.
Pretty sure they canoodled. I wouldn't be here if they hadn't.
Well, that's true.
Welcome back to the Cotswolds and beyond. I've been exploring the magnificent Highclere Castle with its owner, Lady Carnarvon, taking in the lush gardens and lavish rooms which have made it a global TV star. But from Downton Abbey, I'm now heading down the River Nile.
The other reason why I like Highclere Castle is because I'm interested in the pyramids. I've been there, and the history of ancient Egypt. And the 5th Earl, who lived here in Highclere Castle, was responsible for one of the most extraordinary and famous archaeological discoveries ever. So I'm going to go and find out a lot more about it.
That discovery was Tutankhamun's tomb, the boy king who would become the most famous of all the pharaohs. Time to settle down in Lady Carnarvon's fine drawing room to look at her family photo albums.
It's a really wonderful portrait of Egypt at the time, you know, starting from 1906 and going on.
And to hear the intriguing story about the man himself. Lady Carnarvon, tell me why the 5th Earl was so interested in Egypt. What was it that fired him up?
He was a tremendous traveller, and he'd travelled as a young man, having basically been booted out of school, but I quite like that, it's the colour of life. And his father was trying to show him the pageantry of life by exploring the world and seeing it through the eyes of other people. So he'd travelled immensely. From 1906 onwards, he spent much of the winters in Egypt, and he had applied for a concession in that year to excavate in the Valley of the Kings, and he became utterly obsessed with it. He found and fell in love with something which he then proceeded with his own finances.
With archaeologist Howard Carter leading the digs, the 5th Earl's fascination with the country was draining his finances. By 1922, he'd spent what would now be millions in his quest to find a treasure-filled tomb in the very heart of the Valley of the Kings. But he was ready to make one last desperate attempt.
It was by the tomb of Ramses VI, which before the tomb of Tutankhamun was the attraction in the Valley of the Kings for tourists. They hadn't explored it because they were going to, compromise the visitor attraction.
Yes.
So that's why Howard Carter went out early in the last year when they said have one more go, and they went out early in order to dig before the visitors got out there.
And triumphed.
And triumphed.
The treasure trove the Earl and archaeologist Carter unearthed in Tutankhamun's tomb would surpass anything ever found before in Egypt. What was his reaction upon the discovery of the tomb, the opening of the tomb? I mean, he must have been ecstatic.
They were beyond words.
Yes.
They never in their wildest dreams thought they'd find it. And, you know, it was the last gasp because he was about to give up.
However, this is a tale of tragedy as well as triumph for the Earl. A matter of months after discovering the tomb's treasures, he was struck down and died in what some say were mysterious circumstances. What about the curse, the famous curse of Tutankhamun? What do you make of that?
Well, I think that every single pharaoh, he wanted to arrive in the next world, the world of the resurrection, with all his beautiful treasures. So in order to do that, they all set these curses about their tombs to try to ward off grave diggers.
Oh, I see.
It's rumoured that 8 people present when the tomb was opened succumbed to the pharaoh's curse, although the truth behind the Earl's demise is less sinister.
Lord Carnarvon was bitten by a mosquito, which is the malarial connection, nicked his cheek with a razor, did not put enough iodine on it, which led to septicemia, later pneumonia, and he died too. So there's lots of wonderful curses and stories.
So, nothing more creepy than a mosquito bite after all. The Earl's dogged determination and his part in the most famous pharaoh find of all time certainly created a sensation a century ago. Lady Carnarvon, what impact did the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb have in the world?
I think it was the first world media event. It was extraordinary. Perhaps it was a result of coming after the tragedy and the despair of the First World War. And it was this glint of gold, this window into a civilization of, 1500 BC, 3,000 years old of the time, and 3,500 years. And it just captured everyone's imagination. And, I've got notes from the 5th Earl saying he couldn't believe whether you worked on a farm or drove a taxi in London, whichever country you were from, or the King and Queen, with whom he had an audience. Everybody wanted to know about it.
Yeah, it's everybody's dream, isn't it, to come across treasure.
The treasure, the quest, the journey.
Yeah, I know. My dad used to read things about people digging up crocks of old coins and things, treasure trove.
Well, I still like doing that. I think it's fantastic.
Yes, I know. It's everybody's dream, isn't it? Highclere Castle may seem a million miles away from the pyramids, but it truly is a place packed with its own treasures, and it's been fascinating to learn about some of them on my visit. Well, from the high points of Highclere, I'm now heading across the Cotswolds and just beyond to explore a most remarkable landscape. The glorious and ancient Malvern Hills dominate the counties of Herefordshire, Gloucestershire and Worcestershire, and sitting in their impressive shadow is the town of Great Malvern, which is where I'm meeting a former breakfast TV star, a lady who spent her childhood here.
Hello, Anne. Oh, lovely to see you, and you. Oh, it's so nice to see you.
Anne Diamond, one of the UK's best-loved journalists and broadcasters, is a Malvernian born and bred. Anne and her presenting partner Nick Owen woke the nation in the 80s and 90s with shows like TV AM and Good Morning with Anne and Nick. So this is your hometown, Anne, Malvern?
Malvern is, yeah.
It's very beautiful.
It is beautiful, and there are lots of Malverns. There's Little Malvern, Malvern Wells, Malvern Priory. They're all sort of little clusters of towns around the Malvern Hills, and the Malvern Hills are the centrepiece.
Malvern's got a very period feel, hasn't it?
Well, yes, I mean, it's a Victorian spa town. And the beautiful Victorian lampposts are meant to have inspired C.S. Lewis to write The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe.
Really?
Well, it is said that he and J.R.R. Tolkien, one very snowy night, they were staggering out of a pub up on Bellevue Terrace, and apparently C.S. Lewis looked at the snowflakes sputtering on the flame and said, "Do you know, that sort of scene would make a lovely opening for a book."
I didn't know that. So what was it like to grow up in Malvern? I mean, it seems to be kind of out of the way.
It is out of the way, and it was very close-knit, actually. Everybody knew everybody.
Oh, yes.
All the kids knew each other. We all went to school together. The highlight of my life at weekends would have been, popping into Woolies on a Saturday morning to get a quarter of pineapple chunks or something like that.
Yes. I bought my first circle-stitched bra in Woolies, and then I also used to meet my boyfriend there when I was 14. It was so romantic.
Still, he'd be about 99 now, so perhaps we'd better move on.
Let's go and have a mooch around.
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
Just along the way, Anne's found something interesting and refreshing.
So now this is Bellevue Terrace. people come up here to take the waters. I mean, that's what people always did in Malvern. And I thought you might like a taste, because Malvern water is world famous.
I know,
I mean, the
I know
Queen
it is,
used to
and
take it everywhere with
I know,
her.
I read that. We'll
has
have
always
some.
done.
We'll give it the test.
Malvern water.
And let's have a taste. Oh, it's lovely. Cheers.
It's not bad. Cheers.
Cheers, Malvern.
It's not just the spring water that's famous in Great Malvern. It's also home to one of Britain's most prestigious independent schools, Malvern College.
After you.
Look, crikey.
Crikey, look at that.
And this incredible building holds a special place in Anne's heart.
The story sort of starts with my dad in Greenock, just outside Glasgow.
Right.
When war was declared, he almost literally went and queued up to be an RAF pilot. And they stopped him and said, you can't fly because you've got a science degree. You're going to be sent to do secret war work.
Anne's dad, Jimmy, was sent to join the team at Worth Matravers in Dorset, working on development of radar. This cutting-edge technology would give the RAF the advantage when it came to detecting enemy bombers. But Hitler got wind of the fact that the best scientific brains in the country had headed to the south coast and ordered a merciless bombing raid.
And so apparently overnight, Churchill said, we've got to find somewhere for my radar scientists to go that will be absolutely safe. And he sort of looked at the map and said, Malvern.
Under the cover of darkness, all 2,000 scientists and their equipment were relocated to Malvern College. And for Jimmy, there was a very happy outcome to the move.
He was stationed in House 5, which is one of the boarding houses
yes, I
down
know,
there.
yeah.
And that's where he spent the rest of the war. My mum was then requisitioned as a secretary to his unit, and that's how they met.
So, as they would have said at the time, they were stepping out together.
That's right, they were courting,
This is
canoodling. Pretty sure they canoodled. I wouldn't be here if they hadn't.
Well, that's true.
Anne's mum and dad fell in love fighting a secret war, one so secret that not even their families were in the know, even after the war had ended.
They were never allowed to tell us about it. And so I'm only just now trying to piece together what they were doing. And they were doing some incredible stuff. It was said that radar won the war every bit as much as the amazing few of the RAF. Well, of course, the few of the RAF were using radar.
What a fantastic story.
I can see why Anne has such a connection to Malvern. Her own family's history is so deeply entwined with that of the town. But now there's another place I really want her to show me, the Malvern Hills and their natural beauty, an inspiration to so many.
That is the most splendiferous view, that
It's
really
beautiful.
is. The sun is glinting on certain parts of it.
And as we reach the top of these ancient hills, an incredible panorama opens up before us, looking across the Severn Valley to the Bristol Channel and the mountains of Wales.
What an absolutely spectacular view.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
So beautiful, and it's this lovely soft blue and green patchwork.
It is the old-fashioned patchwork quilt that everybody talks about.
I know, and this was your
Just loves it.
playground,
Yeah.
Anne. When
I remember my mum brought my sisters and I up, and it got very unusually hot. And the dog, who was very old, Chips he was called, he was really panting and then started to faint.
Oh, no.
And we were really worried we'd lost him. So one of us ran to one of the springs that was nearby, filled it full of beautiful Malvern water, came back and poured it all over his head and down his throat and everything. And he revived. He went on for years after that.
it shows the power of Malvern water to revive the dead.
It does.
And
that's what's so
dying.
lovely about these hills, is that there are springs all over the place. Well, that's why it's green and gorgeous, isn't it?
Aren't we lucky?
Yeah,
Aren't
we
we
are.
lucky to live round here?
Yeah, we're very lucky. I love it.
I've seen you on the telly, of course, but to actually chat to you and find out about your childhood in Malvern, and particularly about your father and the connection with early radar, it's been really interesting, and thank you very much for spending your time with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me, because I'd forgotten how proud I was of Malvern. I'd forgotten, and that's wrong, isn't it? I mean, this is such a wonderful reminder.
Coming up, I explore the stunning Roman history on my very own Cotswolds doorstep.
Oh, look at this.
The grand dining
Oh,
room.
isn't it beautiful?
And we meet the farmer who's created spectacular spectacular flower meadows to make confetti.
The scene is like standing in the middle of a rainbow. You're sort of permanently in a good mood.
Welcome back to the Cotswolds and beyond. One of the things I really love about where I live is its rich history. And when the Romans invaded my part of the Cotswolds, they clearly liked what they saw as well. They named the second largest town in Roman Britain Corinium Dubanorum, but these days we know it as Cirencester. And while the locals lived in primitive conditions, the more advanced Romans were building a huge amphitheatre outside the town.
Oh, look, here it is. Complete with daisies, buttercups and speedwell.
Although you can't see any ruins today, you can still spot the outline of the arena as it would have been nearly 2,000 years ago. And I actually feel a bit trapped.
To be honest, I'm sort of fighting down a slight feeling of dread because when I think about what happened here, you know, the people in this arena would have either been fighting terrible battles with other gladiators or they would have been animals about to die in some horrible barbaric fashion. And all the people around us would have been cheering and eating the snacks of the day and enjoying the spectacle. But I feel a bit vulnerable and I'd quite like to get out.
The Romans may have had gory tastes, but they were brilliant master builders. And just 20 minutes up the road is one of the most remarkable Roman complexes in the whole of Britain. This is Chedworth Roman Villa, which is believed to be a rural farm estate dating back nearly 2,000 years.
You must be Mark.
Hi Pam, really nice to meet you.
And it's really nice to meet you as well. Now, you're the boss of this extraordinary place.
Mark Chamberlain runs the villa for the National Trust, and as you'd expect, he's an absolute fount of knowledge.
I know this isn't a water feature, but I'd like you to tell me what it is.
So this is the Nymphaeum. This is the whole reason, we think, why they picked this spot. Water's really important to the Romans, so this would have been a shrine in its time. They would have worshipped here, but also for the practicalities of building
Indeed.
a villa here.
Yeah, absolutely. The plumbing must have been extraordinary.
For the Romans, this natural spring would have provided water for the whole of the villa complex. And it's thanks to their advanced plumbing skills that it arrived just where it was needed.
It would have been a network of possibly lead pipes or stone troughs, and then using gravity to feed all the way down as it went down the valley.
So they obviously didn't find it as difficult to find a plumber in those times as we do today.
No, you're right.
It was a chance discovery by a gamekeeper in 1864 which actually triggered the excavation of one of the largest and most elaborate Roman villas in Britain. And the most significant find was its main living accommodation, the exquisite remains of which are now housed in this wooden structure. Mark and I are heading into the entrance area of the main home, which housed a wonderful and intricate spa, and I'd like to know how it was used.
So if I had arrived here at this wonderful villa and I'm a guest, I might have come on my horse and I'm all hot and sweaty and covered in horsehair and horse sweat. And here I have arrived. Now, what happens to me now, Mark?
So you would have been waved into the reception room,
Right.
taken off your hot, sweaty clothes,
Oh, yes.
and exchanged those for something you could bathe in.
Yeah.
You would then come round and make your way into the tepidarium, or the warm room. And this would be like a sauna today.
That's going to be boiling.
It's going to be
Will
really
it burn
hot.
my feet?
It might well have been really warm for your feet, so you then jump into the warm bath. And when you were quite happy, you then jump into the cold bath. And that would have closed all your pores back
With a,
up.
with
probably.
a clang, I
With a
should think. Yeah, so my pores are all closed with a clang. 'Cause
Pores
it's
are
so
closed
cold.
up. You would have then come back and then got dressed for dinner.
I would have felt very refreshed, I think.
I think you would have, and cleansed.
I would have glowed.
In Roman times, this Cotswold home would have equalled any millionaire's mansion we see today. And now we're moving through the villa to its most spectacular area, the dining room.
Oh, look. Oh, look at this.
Much of the complex mosaic floor has been meticulously preserved, and it's seriously stunning.
The grand dining
Oh,
room.
isn't it beautiful? And it's so old. It's what, 1,700 years old?
Absolutely.
Somebody knelt there and placed all those little stones. They are absolutely tiny little pieces, Mark.
Amazing little pieces, individual pieces of hand-cut stone. And I think what's particularly impressive is the way they've managed to line up all the lines and the patterns.
It's a very intricate pattern, isn't it? And you wouldn't have had any kind of laser guidance. No. God, it's extraordinary.
It's a real show-off room. It's where you want to do your high entertaining and say, look at me, haven't I been doing well?
Opulent surroundings.
Absolutely.
Yes, people would come in here and dine, and they would have no doubt that you were a person of substance and wealth and importance and all those sort of things.
So it's a real statement and a decadence that says, this is me.
Yeah, this is what I'm worth.
The Romans who lived at Chedworth certainly left us something to marvel at here in the Cotswolds. And it wasn't just the villa that they left behind.
One of the things the Romans brought over and are still with us and are living today, although they're a bit elusive, are the Roman snails and things.
Can I have a look?
You can indeed.
Very nice to meet you, Mr. Snail.
So the Romans brought these special snails over to eat, Mark.
We believe so, that's right.
Yeah, and they're still here.
And they're still here.
Isn't it nice that some of the original inhabitants
Absolutely.
are
still here, so we don't know who actually lived here, but we still have some snails.
Well, I'll settle for that. My visit to Chedworth has been fascinating, and the best lesson in Roman history I've ever had. The Cotswolds is an area famous for its outstanding natural beauty. And there's one spot close to its most northerly tip in the heart of Worcestershire, which has undergone an extraordinary transformation. Today, this huge farm is an amazing beacon of floral beauty and a haven for wildlife on land that previously just grew cereals. And it's all thanks to the colourful vision of one man.
The scene is like standing in the middle of a rainbow.
For the past 25 years, farmer Charles Hudson has been enhancing weddings by creating beautiful eco-friendly confetti out of dried flower petals.
The great thing about working in this industry is that everybody you're working with is really happy because they're getting married. You're sort of permanently in a good mood.
Charles was the first person in the UK to grow delphiniums and cornflowers and to turn their dried petals into lovely biodegradable confetti. And it's all done here on the huge 1,000-acre Wyke Manor estate just outside Pershore.
We grow individual colours because people want to have bespoke wedding colours to match their wedding. We have white, tudor pink, azure blue, light pink, lilac. I mean, funnily enough, a couple of years ago, there was a trend for black and white weddings. So people had black cornflowers and white delphinium petals.
Black confetti? I don't fancy that. But each to their own. Charles and his team work tirelessly all year round to ensure this kaleidoscope of confetti is all ready for the busy wedding season.
It's quite a difficult process because it's subject to weather. We can't pick in the wet, we can't pick when it's windy. We can suffer some years where we get bad weather, 2 weeks of bad weather, and we're up the spout, so to speak.
But harvesting is only half the job.
They're sifted to make sure we've got no sort of beetly bugs or anything that's going to make a bride sort of scream in horror. And then they are slowly dried naturally so that they don't lose their sort of three-dimensional shape.
2 to 3 days later, they're ready to be packed and sent out to happy couples all over the world. And sometimes it's even by royal appointment.
We got rung up by somebody who said we need a lot of pink and white petals for a wedding. It's a big wedding, we need lots of confetti. And the next day, 2 big black limos, sort of men in black, turned up with sort of blacked out windows. It all seemed very mysterious and sort of mafioso. And they bought all this confetti and off they went. And we thought, what on earth's that about? And on Monday morning, there was big pictures in the press of Prince Harry and Prince William throwing our flower petals over Prince Charles and Camilla.
Business may be blossoming, but for Charles, this farm is about more than just producing exquisite confetti. On certain weekends of the year, the fields are open to the public too.
One of the nice things is watching people come from their busy lives and spend, you know, 2-3 hours just being here and walking and seeing them relax and decompress. It gives a huge amount of sort of spiritual fulfillment, which is such a lovely thing.
I remember when paper confetti was banned from churches as litter. So I love what Charles is doing here, and I wish him all the best. Coming up, I visit a traditional seaside chippy which has become a magnet for the rich and famous.
But we've had some lovely celebrities in here.
Yes, we've even had Boris.
Boris?
There's pictures on the wall down
The
there.
Boris?
Boris Johnson
Yeah.
has been in here.
And I'll read you a tasty poem about one family's harrowing experience.
A vile curse pollutes his lips. The blighters had me fish and chips.
Iraq, a country that is home to 40 million people. A country that was the birthplace of civilization.
Breathtaking. I never thought I would say this is Michael Palin in Babylon.
Join me, Michael Palin, as I go into Iraq. Starts Tuesday at 9 on Channel 5 and My 5.
When you feel you might get swept away at any moment, that's a splash of the bold.
Trevento sponsors bold discovery and adventure.
There's nothing better than exploring the beautiful rolling countryside of the Cotswolds. But for my next trip, I'm heading beyond its borders to the seaside resort of Weston-super-Mare on the North Somerset coast for a day out with a difference. I love traditional seaside resorts like Weston, but I've never forgotten when I was a little girl and my auntie brought my sister on holiday here, but I was considered too young to come. And as this has always made me feel somewhat hostile towards Weston-super-Mare, I have come back today to make my peace with the town. Part of Weston's enduring charm is its real sense of tradition.
You know, you can't come to the seaside and not have an ice cream. It'd be sacrilege. Oh, God, I've won. Look. Look. I've won a ball. Oh, wow, it's the first time I've ever won anything in my life.
There's lots of fun to be had in Weston, and much of it takes place here on its stunning Edwardian pier, which has been at the heart of the town for the past 120 years. I'm meeting owner Michelle Michael to find out more about its turbulent history.
It was opened in 1904. And really, it was the hot ticket. It wasn't open to everybody.
Oh, it wasn't? You couldn't stroll on?
No, you had to buy a membership. You would get dressed up in your finery and you would promenade over the water. So,
and there was a theatre here, wasn't there? Tell me about that, because it was vast.
It was vast. 2,000 seats. The cost of coming along to watch these acts was too much for the everyday person to pay.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that piers were for the posh.
But that all changed in 1930 when a devastating fire razed the Grand Piers Theatre to the ground. The owners had no insurance, so were forced to sell up, and the new landlords, who were the makers of the first one-armed bandit fruit machines, had a different vision for the pier.
So that was the sort of the beginning of the sort of boats bobbing on the water and the sort of the start of ghost trains and little machines that you'd put your money in and you did something to win a prize or to get some entertainment. So that was that shift, and actually that was when it was open to the public.
Michelle was born and raised within a stone's throw of here, and when she and her brother had the chance to buy the pier in 2008, they jumped at it.
Michelle, what does this pier mean to you, and what does it mean to the town?
It represents Weston to a T. It's something that everyone comes to who's in the local vicinity. And for us as a family, we believe that the pier is accessible to everybody, even on a budget. even if they want to cross the threshold and bring their own sandwiches and just enjoy the view.
But if you don't fancy a sandwich, you could also visit another seaside institution, the local chippy. I'm heading to Papa's family restaurant to meet owner Adam to find out what makes a really good fish and chip shop.
The thing I notice about your shop is that there's a lovely buzz here.
I agree with you. We're very lucky.
Adam's been serving his local customers for over 30 years. But he's also catered for his fair share of famous faces too. There's a rogues gallery on the wall.
I do notice as I sit here in your shop that you've got lots of photos of the famous on the wall.
The rich and shameless, oh yes.
The rich and shameless,
yes.
I like that, yeah.
Ken Dodd, he was always lovely, bless him. Val Doonican, Danny LaRue. Girls, who else famous people have come in and had our lovely fish and chips, Sheila?
Hairy bikers.
Hairy bikers, yeah, they loved it.
They sat there and they had 2 large haddock.
Yeah.
You've got a good memory.
They were lovely, yes.
But we've had some lovely celebrities in here,
Yes,
haven't
we've
some
even
really
had
good.
Boris.
Boris?
Yeah.
What, the Boris?
Boris Johnson has been in here. He came and had a lovely fish and chips here. It didn't work.
Why not?
I said,
why not?
Taxes are too high, prices are too high. Come on, look after the country.
Well, Adam, I do love fish and chips, so I would love to try some of your fish and chips, please. What would you recommend?
I'm going to cook you a lovely piece of cod. I'll cook you some, but the deal is...
Yes, what's the deal?
The deal is I'm going to take your picture,
right.
OK, as lovely as you are, and I'm going to put you on the wall.
Going to be in the Hall of Fame,
It will be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh,
Bless
well, thank you very much.
Take the picture now.
Yeah, I'll
Come
try.
on then.
I'll look my best. I'll try and look my best.
Gorgeous, my darling. Let's go. Beautiful. Lovely, Pam.
Thank you.
Well, there I am in the Hall of Fame in Papa's Chippy. I've finally made it. My trip to Weston has been lovely. And sitting here with this delicious fragrance wafted up my nostrils reminds me of a poem I wrote about the hazards of eating fish and chips.
The seagull sits like all his breed, pink of leg and bony kneed, yellow eye prospecting hard for any tourist off his guard. Down below a pleasant scene, a family by the sea washed clean, with fish and chips upon their laps. Dad stands to take some family snaps. But before his lens a creature flies. Father can't believe his eyes. Enraged he bellows, "Oh my God, a seagull's had me battered cod." A vile curse pollutes his lips. The blighter's had me fish and chips. On high the bird, triumphant, sleek, smacks his vinegary beak.
Next time, I visit Longleat House and say good day to its newest and cutest residents.
Yeah, sweetie, would you like some of that? Oh, yes, please. Delicious.
At an Oxford botanical garden, I learn about creepy, flesh-eating flora.
Come in, darling.
It's very inviting.
Yeah, you'll like it. Nature is awesome.
And I uncover the history of a special landmark in the place where I grew up.
The only reason it's here is because your ancestors looked after it for 3,000 years.
That's extraordinary.
And you can see that next Friday at the later time of 9. With previously unseen footage and family pictures, discover the real story behind the amazing Hattie Jakes, larger than life, brand new tomorrow at 8. Rummaging for relics on the banks of the Thames, stay with us to join Dan Walker and the team digging for treasure. That's brand new next.